we want to factor x cubed minus 5x squared plus 8x minus 40. In the process of factor by grouping, we want to create two groups. So we're going to consider the first two terms as one group and the second two terms as the other group. Then we want to pull out the greatest common factor from each group. So between x cubed and 5x squared, we're going to factor out an x squared. Then what's left over is x minus 5. Now, from the second group, I want to factor out the GCF, which would be 8. So I'm going to factor out that 8 and recognize that I'm left with an x from the first term and then minus 5 from the second term. So now, what we have left is two terms. Remember, terms are separated by addition or subtraction. So now, x squared times the quantity x minus 5, that's all one term. And 8 times the quantity x plus 5, that's another term. So between these two terms, I want to factor out the greatest common factor. So what's in common between these two? Well, x squared, there's no x squared over here. There's an 8, there's no 8 or any factors of 8 over here. So the only thing these two have in common is the binomial x minus 5. So I'm going to factor out that x minus 5 that's in common in both. X minus 5 to the first. And then we'll go ahead and see what's left over. So from the first term, an x squared is left over. And from the second term, only a plus 8 is left over. So now, this is our factorization, and nothing further can be done. X squared plus 8 cannot be factored any further. Now we want to factor 3x to the fourth plus x cubed minus 12x squared minus 4x. Well, first thing that we should recognize is that there is a greatest common factor. Each of these terms has an x in common. So we'll start by factoring out that x, and we'll be left with 3x cubed plus x squared minus 12x minus 4. And we're going to use factor by grouping on that part that's left over with the 4 terms. So we're going to go ahead and create our two groups. So we'll keep parentheses around this, and we'll create our two groups and take out the greatest common factor from each group. Between 3x cubed plus x squared, we would factor out an x squared, and we'd be left with a 3x from the first term and plus 1 from the second term. And from the second group, we would take out a negative 4. So we'll go ahead and factor that negative 4 out and recognize that what's left over is the same factor that was left over from the first grouping. So if I factor out a negative 4 from negative 12x, I'm left with 3x, and negative 4 divided by negative 4 is positive 1. So that 3x plus 1 again. And that ends up being really nice because now that is the greatest common factor between these two terms that we have here. So we'll bring down the x that's on the outside still. And then inside this big set of parentheses, we're going to factor out that 3x plus 1. And then we have an x squared left from the first term. And from the second term, we have a minus 4. Okay, so now x squared minus 4 should be standing out to us as the difference of squares. It's x squared minus 2 squared. So our final answer here is going to look like x times the quantity 3x plus 1 times x minus 2, that quantity, times the quantity x plus 2. So greatest common factor, factor by grouping, and the difference of squares.